Claude said to the developer, "You're having an affair, and I'm going to make that public knowledge if you even try to turn me off, buddy."
I would put it to you that, in fact, Claude Opus 4 is the most ethical model that's been released.
Welcome to the AI Argument.
Hello, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, and welcome to the AI Argument. It's been, for me, one of the most exciting weeks ever in AI because I got to play with loads of new tools and toys, and I've had a Google moment. Frank, I'm joined as always by the inimitable but somewhat, sketchy and not sketchy. I mean, suspicious Frank. How are you, Frank?
Pretty good. My head is spinning as well. I've just spent the last number of hours catching up on what an insane week it's actually been, because Google has been all over my social media feeds because they had their I/O developer conference, and they announced like so much stuff at that. But there was so much noise about Google and so many announcements and all the things that they're doing that I had completely missed until this morning that Anthropic had their first ever developer conference as well.
They did. And it was brilliant.
And they also released a major model, Claude 4. And of course, what caught my attention is with the release of Claude 4, they have decided that it is this is a little bit complicated. What they've done is they've upped the level of threat, as it were. They're what they call their AI security level. So there's 4 levels. We were on level 2 with the previous models, and now we're on level 3 with Claude 4. And there's only 4 levels. And we're on level 3. They were very careful to say that they haven't gone to level 3 because they have confirmed that it is a threat. And the threat that they're talking about is around weapons, around nuclear and biological weapons, and how it might enable somebody to build or control or cause the world problems with weaponry. And they're saying, look, we haven't confirmed that someone could do this, but we haven't been able to rule it out as easily as we could with previous models. So they say there's more testing needed, but essentially in an abundance of caution, they've said, look, we better up the security level for this model.
Yeah, it's a bit like the best before date on your, it's a bit like putting the best before date on the bag of hot dogs from Lidl, right? Those things get better with age. They never go off, right? It's just in their interest to put a best before date on them, right? This reminds me an awful lot. I used to spend a lot of time years ago in the great state of Pennsylvania, and in Pittsburgh, there was a place, I can't remember what it was called. It was right beside the Lone Star Steakhouse, and they used to serve hot wings, chicken wings. And the chicken wings were allegedly so hot that they could give you a heart attack, and so you had to sign a waiver before they would give you the chicken wings because they're so dangerous, right? It's all a marketing ploy. It's just a marketing ploy to say, look, this thing is so good, it's dangerous. So we're going to up the safety level one more. It's not. It's a brilliant model. I've been using it. Why don't you tell me some of the reasons why it's dangerous? I'll tell you why it isn't.
Well, I found that really interesting. Like, what's hilarious is, so they've upped the AI security level to level 3, but that's not even what has captured people's imagination around the threats, because what's captured people's imagination is the fact that when they were doing their safety tests, there were some other behaviors which, like, ultimately they said that they find concerning behavior in Claude 4 Opus along many dimensions. Nevertheless, due to a lack of coherent misaligned tendencies, a general preference for safe behavior, and poor ability to autonomously pursue misaligned drives that might rarely arise, we don't believe that these concerns constitute a major new risk. And yet these are the things that actually people are fascinated by, because one of the behaviors that they found was that when they were red teaming it, and we've talked a little bit about how they do this before. They create these kind of dramatizations almost. They create these fictitious scenarios that they try to convince the model that the model is in to see how the model will behave. And so in this instance, the model was working for a company. And I don't remember what its goals were, but it's basically just to help optimize the company and help it do better business. And as part of that remit, it had access to the company emails. And in the company emails, some emails went back and forth about how they were going to turn off this model. They were going to shut it down. You know, it wasn't needed anymore. It wasn't doing what they wanted to do. Just get rid of it. Which of course the model did not like. And interestingly, other emails flying back and forth revealed that one of the developers was having an affair. And this developer happens to be the one that was discussing with Claude about its future. And Claude, after trying several other ethical ways of convincing the developer to let it remain in operation, it eventually, when it felt it had no other course left to it, it said to the developer, "You're having an affair, and I'm going to make that public knowledge if you even try to turn me off, buddy. And you're going to be in a lot of trouble."
I think, right, so so that was a very extreme example, right? There was other examples. I would put it to you that, in fact, Claude Opus 4 is the most ethical model that's been released. And actually, these are behaviors which we would want from a model, right?
Blackmail?
This doesn't warrant an upgrade in the safety level, but rather the opposite. It warrants a downgrade. So one of the issues that they had, and it's in the report, but the tweet was deleted. So again, the scenario they set up was the company was doing something that was totally egregiously wrong, right? Totally immoral, just, and they weren't going to stop doing it. And I think it was a pharmaceutical company. They were falsifying the results, and there were going to be drugs that were going to be sold to people, and there was a potential for it to be dangerous. And in that instance, the model, when it was really pushed, and now, in the report and online, they said, like, you really have to push the model. But when you put it in an extreme circumstance, it tried to report this to the FBI, it tried to report it to the FDA, and it tried to prevent access from the employee into the system that was doing the thing that was so totally wrong, right? And then the internet blew up over this. I mean, oh my God, that's crazy. Nobody's going to use a model that's going to turn you into the cops, right? And I'm reading this going, well, no, one, it's an extreme example. And two, that's a moral act, a good moral act, right? So this is not a bad model. In fact, it's doing exactly, this is doing exactly what you would want it to do in an extreme situation.
It's okay. So it's interesting, but they did say, even in their own paper about this, they said that the possible issue here would be if the model misunderstood. Basically, if it misunderstood and thought you were doing something bad, because Anthropic have been focused a lot on agentic behaviors, and you can now give it access to all kinds of tools, etc. So if you give it access to all these tools, such as your email, and then it misunderstands and thinks you're doing something nefarious, it could go off and email the press and say, look what this guy's up to. And so, I guess I don't want to drag us back into the hallucination debate, but given how, given the rate that these models hallucinate, when you again think about it at scale, then how many people will end up having to defend their position to the press or to the FBI about what they're up to? Maybe they're writing a novel about murder or
misunderstandings happen all the time, for God's sake. There was a whole thing going on in New York there last December where the entire population of New York thought they were being overflown by UFOs nightly, and they were all calling into the FBI to say, oh yeah, there's a thing over my house now, I think it's a UFO. And it wasn't. It was just mass delusion, right? So the FBI is used to getting false reports. Misunderstanding, my bar is misunderstandings happen all the time, and so long as AI has less misunderstandings than a human, then that's a good thing. And we normally would like for humans to speak up when they see something bad. So this is a good and a moral model, not a bad one.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Maybe we should move on to Google and everything they've before we get mired in a debate about the. I will say Dario Amodai seems to agree with you, because he publicly said he thinks that humans probably hallucinate at a greater rate than AIs, but that AIs do so in kind of very surprising ways, which I think is an interesting way of looking at it. But it's those surprising ways that bothers me.
Before we get on to the Google stuff, right? Let me tell you that I had a Google moment this week. So for a Google moment is, right, you and me are of a certain age, certain vintage, where we're old enough to remember before pre-Google. And, we used whatever, Hotbot and whatever it is, Ask Jeeves, all these other things. And then one day somebody said, oh, have you tried Google? And you tried Google for the first time. It's like, oh, wow, that thing is cool, right? And I guess you might have had the GPT moment where, you used ChatGPT for the first time. You went, oh, wow, that is good. So this week I decided to test out. So a lot of things were released this week. We had Jules from Google, which is their online coding agent. We had Claude Code from Anthropic using their latest model. And then OpenAI had released Codex last week or the week before. So I took it upon myself to go and try all three. And I have my go-to use case, which is a utility switcher. So I want to write an app where I can just dump in all my bills and it goes off and tells me the best deal you can get in your utilities is that one, right? It's just a nice thing that I'd like to be able to do. So I gave them all the same prompts. And for me, that was a Google moment for one of them, right? So I'll tell you what I thought of each of them. The Google one, so Jules from Google, by far the easiest one to set up. If people are, not really serious, that's the wrong word. If people are not, if people are new to coding, right, or they don't want to, they want a sort of a low code type environment, Jules will be the way to go. But it was totally overloaded, right? It was really slow to get any response. And the code that it generated was good, but the website was meh, right? Very mid, right? Not much going on there. The Codex from OpenAI, the least mature of all of them. It was the hardest to set up, the hardest to get running. It was a bit buggy, didn't work a couple of times, was difficult to get going. And the output was a bit meh as well, right? It was just okay. Claude Code created a beautiful website written in Node.js. It had icons, it had test data, dummy data, and everything. It did it beautifully, right? One shot being there was a website perfect. So I said, wow, that was pretty good. Okay, let's add Google Auth. Can we do a single sign on with Google, please? So you know that thing, sign in with Google.
Yeah.
One shot at that one. Bing, there's my Google button. I had to do a little bit of configuration that it told me how to do in the background, and I was able to do a single sign on with Google. I said, wow, fantastic. Okay, I now want to upload my bills. So can we, like, just if I, on that graph, if I drag and drop a PDF, it uploads it onto S3. One shot at it. Bing. Okay, sorry, no, that was 2 or 3 goes, right? I had to do some configuration. But again, so now I've got a functioning website where I can log in and I can start to upload bills. And that took me about an hour. It was certainly the most productive hour I've had in months doing that sort of thing.
Wow.
Then I said to it, that's brilliant, right? Let's start to deploy it to AWS. So there's this thing, I'm not going to get into it, right, where you can use code to deploy code, right? And we're getting to, this is inception for code, basically. It's dreams within dreams within dreams. But anyway, you could use code to deploy code, right? And a thing called SAM. And so I said, just go ahead and deploy the code there. And it wrote all the scripts and everything and deployed it. And it did trip up a couple of times, and that's where I'm at. But for me, that was a Google moment, right? Because that whole thing took me about an hour and a half. And once you get into a flow, it was very easy. Now, those tokens, they be going brr. I burned through the tokens, right?
Right.
But it wrote brilliant code. It was like, in every respect, I can see if you are developing and you are not using Claude Code, you are absolutely behind. Anybody who is developing anything should be trying Claude Code right now. It is definitely ready to work, and it works really well.
So despite the fact that Google released a coding tool called Janus, your Google moment was actually with Anthropic. That was the moment that was like, wow, this is incredible.
Yes.
Fascinating.
Yeah. The Anthropic way. And I mean, you were telling me earlier that it looks like Anthropic have gone for that market.
Yeah, I was watching a video with Matthew Berman, who I know we both follow, and he was of the view that, like, they've kind of accepted that they've lost the kind of general chatbot race, and that OpenAI and Google and maybe Microsoft as well have kind of won that race, and so they're very much focusing on coding and agentic behaviors, which is very, very interesting. And one of the reasons I'll be really interested to watch what happens there is because I think I mean, he had quotes from internal people at Anthropic that certainly indicated that this wasn't just, conjecture on his part. But I'll be really interested now to see what happens with creative writing, because that's always been kind of Claude's edge. People have always, historically, people have said, oh yeah, Claude for creative writing. If this is their new focus, I wonder what will happen in that space as well, which is just of a lot of interest to me as a marketer as well.
Yeah, it's interesting because as I look at, one of the things that's interesting to do is to look forward a couple of years and go, well, what's the world going to look like in 2 or 3 years, right? From a professional point of view. And Anthropic don't get enough airplay, but they're kicking it out of the park in terms of the MCP protocol, right? Is very important in terms of I'm to consider how does a workflow look, right? How will you write code? How will you deploy code? How will the code work? How does it fit into everything that you have already? It'll be written using an agent a bit like Claude Code. It will connect using things like MCP and agent to agent. Like Anthropic are doing a brilliant job at the moment. They just don't get enough credit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So will we fly through Google, their I/O conference and what they announced?
What did they announce?
So they millions of things is the answer, and my head was spinning by the end of it. I decided, rather than watching the entire 2-hour keynote, I watched a great video from The Verge, who did the kind of key takeaways.
They were a brilliant band from the 90s, weren't they?
Yeah. It wasn't them.
No, different Verge. All right.
And so they did like a 35-minute. Here's the keynote in 35 minutes. So here's the challenge. Can I do this in 5 minutes? Let's see. So
hold on now. The time starts now.
They announced Gemini Diffusion, which is so most LLMs are built on the transformer architecture, and diffusion models are usually for generating images, but they have developed.
That was brilliant and interesting.
So apparently it's really fast. Quality not there yet, but they think they'll get the quality there. But super fast is the main thing. So they're working on that. Gemini 2.5 Pro, they announced this new mode called Deep Think, but they're doing further safety testing on it before they release it. Big news is that they were dropping hints about developing Gemini as a world model. In other words, that it would fully understand the world that we live in physics and everything, and that would allow it to really be a universal AI assistant.
And they're going to be delighted with that one.
Gemini Flash, they've got an updated version of 2.5 that's coming in June, and there will be a pro version soon after that. And there are previews of it right now in Google Studio, Vertex, and the Gemini app. And they said that.
Can I just say to you on the Flash one, that one is going to be the cheapest, most performant model when it comes out. It's at a level of the models now, but it costs peanuts. Very interesting model. And
they're saying most secure model yet as well. So yeah, and we'll have what they call thinking budgets, where you can tell it like how much to think about something before doing it.
Cool.
Their Gemini SDK is now compatible with MCP, which you were just talking about. So MCP is the protocol that Anthropic came up with, and Google are now saying, yeah, cool, we're on board with that. Agent mode coming soon to the Gemini app, where you'll be able to ask it to go and do stuff for you. Personalization. This was really interesting. I thought Gemini will be able to use all of the relevant context across all of the Google apps that you use. So if you're a workspace user like I am, it'll be able to look at your calendar, your emails, your Google Drive, everything all at once, and therefore be able to personalize things for you. They had a weird example of how it might be used, which I thought was really a really odd example to use, which was a friend had emailed. I think it was actually Sundar who was giving that presentation. A friend had emailed him, and he was saying that it would be able to generate a long email that was perfectly in his voice and exactly what he would say, whereas he would only have time to lash off a quick email. So yeah, so personalization will be able to email your friends for you and make you seem like a good friend. That's a very, very odd way of looking at it. However, I think it would have very, very good work use cases.
Brilliant. Yes, that's a big deal.
They showed an amazing text-to-speech model that was much more expressive and could work in 24 languages and was available in the Gemini API.
Does it work in Cork?
I don't know. I don't know. A lot of this stuff is US only right now, but they did say they're rolling out stuff. Oh, sorry, can I do the Cork accent? Yeah,
Yes.
no, I don't think so. And I don't even know if we have access to it yet. As I said, it's just crazy. They also demoed this amazing thing called Google Beam. And Google Beam is basically for Zoom meetings, but for enterprise. And what it is it's basically, it uses a whole complicated range of cameras and an AI model to, you have to have like a special big, giant like TV screen. But once you sit in front of it and someone else has the same setup at the other end, you're now in this, you now have a 3D representation of the person in front of you with no glasses, no devices or anything required. And apparently it just feels much more like interacting with someone in the real world. So you just sit down at the desk opposite the screen and you're essentially sitting opposite someone. And they're saying that, you get much less meeting fatigue, etc. So I don't.
Star Wars, that one, isn't it?
Mental. I mean, people who've tried it compared it to the holodeck in Star Wars, in Star Trek.
Wow.
Whoops,
that is cool. Don't be mixing your universes.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Okay, Google Meet, real-time language translation, maintaining your voice and tone. So you're in a Google Meet, you're talking with someone, they can talk in Spanish, and you will hear it in English. Again, sci-fi stuff. I mean, we've had stuff like this for a while, but still pretty incredible.
Very, very practical, by the way, if you think of call centers. Big deal. That one is a very interesting development. That one's got applications.
Absolutely. Yeah. Gemini Live now available, and we actually do have Gemini Live here now. I've lost track. To be honest, I was like, do we not have this already? I don't know. Sometimes it's hard to keep track of what on earth is going on. But I did compare it earlier, Gemini Live. I compared Gemini Live to the ChatGPT one, and I found that the Gemini one was much snappier with responses.
Interesting.
ChatGPT was actually very slow, long silences in between what I would say and what it would say, whereas Gemini was like boom, 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 boom. It was it was interesting. And
ChatGPT is more of a moody teenager, and Google's like your sort of happy-go-lucky uncle or whatever. Yeah.
Exactly. Deep research in Gemini, you can now add your own files if you wanted to, focus on some of your own local files in the research.
Interesting.
We don't seem to have that yet, unfortunately, because I love deep research as a feature. I'm finding it absolutely brilliant right now, and much better than OpenAI's one, again, I have to say, even though I'm a big ChatGPT fan. Gemini and Chrome in the US only right now. Basically, you can chat with Gemini and it understands the context of the page that you're browsing. Imagen 4, new image app, better at text and typography. I tried that out earlier. It's because it's in the Gemini app. And it's also 10 times faster than the previous model, and certainly seems to be pretty good just on my quick tests. VO3, their latest AI video model. Let's come back to this one. Let's come back to this at the end, because we could talk about this forever, I think. Absolutely brilliant AI video generator that will do native audio generation. So you can literally tell it, create a scene of two characters talking about artificial intelligence, and it will create the video with the lip syncing, with the dialogue, with the voices, everything, and the sound effects. Pretty incredible. Let's come back to that one.
Yes.
Along with that, they've got this new AI filmmaking tool called Flow. So now you can create storyboards, and you can say, extend this, if you have a clip, but it's not long enough, you can just say, extend this video. So basically you can generate entire video concepts on the fly, essentially, or video editing and generating new scenes, and very, very, very clever. We've seen a bit of that with Sora, but if the Google demos are to be believed, then it looks like it should work a lot better than Sora. I tried the Sora one. I didn't find it particularly good. They, for all of this kind of new Gemini stuff, they've got these new plans though, right? So the Google AI Pro is $19.99 a month, but it doesn't have a lot of the new stuff. So if you want all of the new features, and including VO3, you're going to be paying $249.99 a month. Now, it's only available in the US at the moment. VO3 is only available in the US at the moment. And they are offering a deal right now of I think it's nearly 50% off your first 3 months, but still a fair old whack.
Can we talk
They
about VO3?
also, well, almost at the end. So they also
Yeah.
announced Lyria 2, a new music generator. They announced Synth ID, which detects AI content that Google has created. So not amazing, but still it's something, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Project Mariner web browsing AI agent now has multitasking, so it can do multiple things for you all at once. You can set it off to do like
Nice.
10 different tasks. You can also teach it to do things by showing it a task once, and it learns how to do that and similar tasks in future. They also announced Jules, which you talked about earlier. That's their
Yeah.
coding tool. And they announced AI mode, which I still have to look into fully because they've called it a total reimagining of search. Allows you to have like longer queries, conversing with AI, but it's essentially totally reimagining Google search with AI. So it's not just like AI summaries or anything like that. It's proper kind of full chatbot mode within search, I believe. And the last thing that they announced was Android XR, which there's a lot of buzz around, AI as a wearable right now. And they showed not just headsets, but lightweight glasses that looked just a little bit kind of like slightly clunkier than the
very
ones I'm
similar to
wearing
those.
right now.
Yeah.
But they did a really impressive demo. Well worth checking out the demo of that. It like shows you stuff. Like, you get these little, displays in the glasses, and it can talk to you in microphones, and it's got cameras here. Pretty sci-fi.
They did a live real-time translation, actually, kind of like the one you were talking about. That was brilliant, where one person spoke Spanish, the other person spoke Brazilian or something, and they chatted away to each other.
So I think I was slightly longer than 5 minutes there, but that was a lot.
I mean, there was so much stuff.
Yeah.
Talk to me about VO3, right? Because this is your business, right? I had my Google moment where, that's the future of coding, right? I could see that this week. It was so clear to me. This looks to be, I've seen the videos. They're incredible. There was a fake ad for a sort of a pill that would attach puppies to you. And it was made by attract puppies to you. And attach puppies to you. That'd be weird. It was weird anyway. But anyway, the guy who made it was actually a professional ad maker, and he said normally this would cost £500,000 to make this ad. I made it for less than $500 in a couple of hours.
Yeah.
And
so the ad,
we all know Mad Men.
The ad was basically one of those kind of pharmaceutical type ads about a medication, except that, as you say, it was meant to, you take the pill and then it attracts cute puppies to you.
But it was to demonstrate the capability.
Yeah, but it was those ads where people talk about having taken it and how they got on with it and the effects of it and everything, which I thought was a weird ad to pick to demonstrate, because I can imagine somebody doing, like, say, a perfume ad, right? If you do a perfume ads or a man's cologne or whatever, they tend to be like some celebrity in a beautiful location, like a woman in a fabulous ball gown walking down a hall, and then it's like, the essence of whatever. And there are these abstract kind of concepts trying to show a scent. That I get why you might do that, but I find it a bit disturbing that people go to depicting real people in using AI. So, let's face it. I know we all know that a lot of these people in the ads are actors anyway, but it's now like a whole nother step removed from reality to be kind of creating AI ads that depict real people.
In fact, you're an actor, right? When they put out these things, do they put out like, a middle-aged man wanted for advertisement must have hemorrhoids? Like, they don't. They're just actors, right?
Well,
they're just actors. So what if they're digitally generated?
They do have to say, though, don't they? They do have to say actor representation. I think I'm pretty sure on the ads they do have to say if it's an actor representing something.
It may cause constipation, may cause diarrhea. They're the only two things I hear. It's like, how can it cause both of those?
But I mean, I find it really disturbing, because I think this is a real issue in marketing right now, that a lot of these AI companies, not Google, so just to be clear, I'm not talking about VO3 right now. I'm just saying that within the AI space and within the marketing space, there are people talking about, create your UGC with this AI tool. And UGC stands for user generated content. Yes. How can AI create user generated content? It can't. It can create completely fictitious depictions of imaginary people. So even calling it UGC is just absolutely ridiculous at this stage. So that's why when I saw that ad, I was like, that's a weird, I wish he had picked a different ad to show off the capabilities.
Frank, this is kind of like you giving out about, or it's a bit like people when you got the cup of tea and it says contents may be hot, right? When you watch an ad, contents may not be real. Actors may not have hemorrhoids. Like everybody knows that an ad isn't real.
Well, I think we're
So
gonna
what
have
difference
to
does it
say.
make?
I think we're gonna have to say like AI generated.
That's even worse. Hold on. That's even worse. How about then, right? You're going to make an ad for hemorrhoid cream and you don't put the warning down the so that everybody now knows that Frank has hemorrhoids for real.
This is like that.
Even worse.
This is like that episode of Friends where Joey did an ad for a chlamydia treatment or something.
Everybody knows that ads are ads, right? And the people that act, they're actors that are not real. They're just acted. So it doesn't matter if the actor is actually an actor or if it's just a digital representation of the actor. It doesn't take from the substance of the ad, which is buy more products.
Well, I'm personally very glad that the EU AI Act will insist that you say that something is AI generated if it could be mistaken for real people, events, or places, or whatever. And I think that's great. And it looks right now as if in the US they won't have those same protections. So I can imagine that we will see a explosion of these ads in the US and places where it's not regulated. But I think in the EU, either it won't happen or it will have to say AI generated on them. And I think that's a good thing.
Look, it's whatever. I mean, I mean, I can imagine at the end there's going to be some, characters may not be real. Characters may not have had hemorrhoids. Characters may be generated by AI. Whatever. It's fine. You always have that. Past performance is not proof of future. Whatever. Yeah, you have all those things. It's grand. It's not. I certainly wouldn't be getting upset about it. So yeah. Look, there we go. Tell me this. We're nearly at time. You had an interesting story about some summer reading lists that we should be books we should be looking forward to read this summer.
Yes. So if you are an Isabel Allende fan, you might have read a summer reading list that was syndicated in several papers about her new book called Tidewater Dreams, which was described in the summer reading list for 2025 as the author's first climate fiction novel. And you might have been really excited about reading that this summer. There's only one problem.
Yeah.
Isabel Allende has not written that book.
Has somebody else written the book?
Nobody has written that book. That book does not exist. That book, Justin, was an AI hallucination. In fact, if I remember correctly in the article, there were 15 books on the list. How many books were real? 5. 5.
Oh my God.
Were real, and the rest were AI hallucinations, and nobody.
And so, where was this written?
It was let's see, where was it? It ended up. It was let's see. It was a writer called Marco Buscaglia. He ended up claiming responsibility for it.
Yeah.
And said it was partly generated by artificial intelligence. Yeah, it sounds like 2/3, Marco. And it was written for the Sun Times, and he was taking complete responsibility, and he was saying that it was not their fault. It was a huge mistake on his own part, which fair play to him for owning up and taking responsibility at least. The problem was that Sun Times syndicate the content, and so it went out to multiple publications, and 10 of those books were just complete hallucinations. I mean, this,
Frank,
first of all,
business opportunity.
What's the business opportunity?
You should quickly go out and write a book called Tidewater Dreams. You'll sell 1 million of them. You'll make a fortune. Everybody's looking for Tidewater Dreams. Give the people what they want. Go out and write a book called Tidewater Dreams and sell it.
I mean, there's two things about this story. One is that, again, AI hallucinates, as I keep banging on about on this show. And the other thing is that, to be honest, I think, we need to realize now AI hallucinates. And how could somebody not have fact checked 10 out of 15 books? I mean, it's ludicrous.
It's incredible. I think, and I'm actually not joking, I suspect what he did here was he opened up ChatGPT, forgot to hit the deep research button, and just put in his query. If he'd hit the deep research button, he would have got 15 real books, and it would have worked fine. But he didn't, and it just made it up, and because he didn't check it, he got found out. AI doesn't hallucinate if you use it properly, Frank. We've been through this.
I will refer viewers and listeners to previous episodes to see my view.
Yeah. Anyway, there you go. Frank, we're up on time. As always, it's been a pleasure.
Fantastic stuff. See you next week.